Let's jump in. My friends, I'm so excited that you are here today. Thank you for jumping in and wanting to hang out with me. For those of you that routinely come to these Thursday webinars, good to have you back. Thanks so much for the love and continued support that you show. It means more than you know, especially during a time where I desperately want to make friends, and this is how I can do it. So I'm excited about that. Let me clean this. We got a little schmutz on the webcam here. We got to look cute out here. Come on now, get these angles right. So my friends, today we are talking about love in leadership. We're talking about love and leadership, and I am pumped for that because it's a concept that I think that we need to care about. Believe it or not, I teach things I think other people should care about too. So with that being said, because we have some newer folks on the call, let me just do a quick introduction of myself. If you have never hung out with me before, my name is James Robilotta. Yes, my name kind of sounds like a cheese. You put a little Robilotta on that for me. Thank you. And a little bit about me. I'm a proud New Yorker, born and raised in New York. Shout out to Sayville, New York, voted the friendliest town in America in 1994. And lived a lot of time in New York City as well before moving to Minneapolis. Moved to Minneapolis a year ago today. So folks, let's go grab your bag. Let's get on the boat. Oofta. Okay, now, whoop. So, still working on my accent from out here. Some of you can let me know how I am doing with that. But I'm also a professional speaker. This is what I get to do. I get to travel around the country, and by country, I mean my living room, and give presentations from various places around my living room to people around the world, and I absolutely love it. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's been very fascinating to switch to virtual, but it has also been a really cool challenge and an opportunity to get to meet way more people, and so I'm grateful for it, even though it doesn't quite fill the bucket as much as actually getting to be in a room with all of you and feeling your energy and getting to hug you. So I'm also a life and leadership and speaker coach as well. I hold people accountable to the lives and dreams they say they want to have, and help them get out of their own way to do it. I wrote a book. It's called Leading It Perfectly. I'm self-conscious about it. We're moving. I'm also an improv comedian. I started an improv team in New York called North Coast. We incorporate freestyle rapping into long-form improv. That sounds like a lot because it is a lot, and it's a lot of freaking fun. Now, we've recently started doing virtual shows on North Coast Facebook page, North Coast NYC, on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern. So shout out to that if you want a little freestyle rapping, hip hop improv in your life, which you don't even know what that means. So you should just check it out. Also, I dislocated my right knee, my senior prom dancing to Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman. My friends, again, all of these facts are here so that you know a little bit more about who I am, and as a disclaimer, that I am a fellow human being. So fellow human beings who are on the call with me, let's all recognize that we're on the same plane and that we are all here together as humans, trying to learn, trying to grow, trying to figure this whole thing out, trying to find something to hold on to in the midst of ambiguity. And here we are. So thank you for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk about love in leadership. Love in leadership is really powerful. And for me, I have worked at an institution that that led with fear over love. They led with fear over love. They did a whole bunch of things because their reputation mattered to them more than the experience that their staff and their students were having. They were trying to control the narrative so much of what got out of the institution that they forgot to actually listen to the people inside the institution. And that didn't work because, as a story that I've told on here before, is that, for example, I wanted to be a vice president of student affairs of a major university one day, of a major small university one day, and that was my goal. And so I set up a meeting, or tried to set up a meeting, I should say, with the vice president of student affairs at this institution. Maybe a couple months after being there, I was like, hey, let me set up a meeting, right? I like to shake hands, kiss babies. I'm a bit of a schmoozer. And so let me set up a meeting with this individual and have a conversation with them just to learn about how did they get to where they got to. Just to also let them know, hey, you got an ambitious person underneath you who's ready to learn, ready to do things, ready to look for opportunities. And so I never got an email response for a couple of weeks. I then proceeded to get an email response from someone who was 2 rungs below him, who's the dean of students at this campus. And this individual responded to me with a phone call and said, "Did you email the vice president?" And I said, "Yes." Yeah, yes, I did. I was seeking career advice. I just wanted to know about their story and how they got there. And they said, "You're not allowed to email the vice president. No one emails the vice president." He's like, "I'm not even really supposed to be emailing the vice president." So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to come through me. And so I was like, "Okay, can you tell me about the career trajectory and the pitfalls that this individual experienced on their whole thing?" Probably not. I then got an email from the VPSA that said, literally, "James, got your email. Thank you. I have people underneath me who I've assigned to answer these questions for you." It was this immediate sense of fear, of know your place. There was no leading with love. There was no leading with compassion. There was no leading with hope. It was leading with, get in line. We got a system here. Welcome to the old boys club. And by welcome to the old boys club, I mean, you're not invited because you're a young gunner and we don't trust you, but we have an old boys club here. So all of these things taught me about this concept of what does it mean to lead with love? How would this institution, how would this job, how would this team, how would this organization feel if it was led with love as opposed to leading with fear? And now I love talking about love. I think it's a great topic. I love cheesy things, and love is cheesy, but it's also friggin' beautiful. And so I am here for all of it. And so I'm wondering, does anyone want to get married? Anybody? No? Anybody? Raise your hands. Okay, thank you. I'm already married. Get over yourself. But so here's a fun thing about me. I am a officially licensed wedding officiant. I have had the pleasure of officiating about, I think I've done 7 or 8 weddings at this point, and it is so much friggin' fun. It's also by far some of the most nerve-wracking public speaking I've ever done, because ideally it only happens once. Like, this is it. There isn't a situation where it's like, "Hey, I'd like to make some tweaks. Do you think we could do this again next year?" Right? Like, that's not the kind of thing. You have one chance to nail this magical moment for this couple that is sharing their love. And so it is a huge honor, a huge rush. And I really love it. And I'm grateful for those couples that wanted me to be a part of their special day. And so whenever anybody asks me to officiate a wedding, I ask them 3 questions. I have 3 stipulations that go into whether or not I will officiate your wedding or not. First off, I am not a man of the cloth, as they say. So I will not be speaking anything religious into your ceremony. Now, for a number of reasons. 1, I am not trained. 2, I'm not practiced. 3, I just, if there is an end at this whole thing of life, and I'm supposed to have done the right thing throughout, I feel like faking religion is not a great thing to show at the end of the road. So anyway, I just go ahead and avoid it altogether. If you want something religious in your ceremony, go ahead and get Aunt Martha up here. She'll be happy to read a chapter or something for you. Next. The next thing is that I encourage people to write their vows. I encourage people to write their vows because this is your day. You brought in a friend to officiate your wedding that immediately tells me that you want this to feel more personal. Let's make it personal, right? We can easily do a quick Google search of standard wedding vows, and you could read those to each other. And that just sounds like we should have just saved our money and not done a big old wedding. We could have done that at the Justice of Peace. Could have been about $40, and we could have been bing, bang, boom. We could have been eating Buffalo Wild Wings by this point, y'all. But you chose to have a personal wedding. So I'm going to make you make it even more personal, and I'm going to make you write your own vows. We're going to come back to that concept a little bit later in this session. That's called foreshadowing in the biz. All right. Third is the last stipulation that I have is that I am not an officially licensed marriage counselor. I do coaching though. And so we gonna get on the phone, and I want to get on the phone and I want to talk to you about your communication styles. I want to talk to you more about than what Instagram has taught me about your love. I want to talk to you more about What are you like in conflict? What are you like in those moments where it's not lovey-dovey? You want to just actually shove a live bullfrog into their mouth, right? Like, I want to talk to you about those moments as well, because that all is encompassed in love. Love is also the way that you handle each other in conflict, the way you listen to each other in conflict. All of those things are wrapped up in it. So we gonna talk about it, friends. And so I love this moment. I love being able to be in it with individuals and share these things with people. And so getting to officiate weddings is a huge honor. But now we bring that back to leadership. We bring that back to leadership. And I don't know where you all feel that love plays a role. Because let's be honest really quick, there's different types of love, and there's some love that is inappropriate for leadership. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't need you, keep your hands off me, Rick. But still, there's some inappropriate things, but there's also just different types of love, right? There's love between obviously a parent and a son or a daughter. There's love between friends. There's love in intimate ways. There's love in mentorship roles. There's love in all of these kind of things. And so figuring out what the love looks like here is important. And so that's what I want to dive into today, because I believe we must lead with love. I believe we must give people our hearts that we lead. Yeah, as you know, I'm a firm believer in authenticity and vulnerability. And y'all, I don't know what comes first, love or vulnerability. I'm curious, throw it in the chat. Which one do you think comes first, love or vulnerability? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about that. Which one do you think comes first, love or vulnerability? And so let me go ahead and open up this chat so I can actually see your responses. Vulnerability. Okay. So far, it's a sweep for vulnerability. Yeah, for sure. And sometimes it's being vulnerable. It's not even necessarily being vulnerable to the other person. It's being vulnerable to yourself, right? It's like admitting to yourself that, like, I'm going to get over all these things that I carry a little bit. I'm going to get over them just enough to be able to have a conversation, just enough to be able to think about letting somebody in. And so it's the same idea when we're thinking about leadership. When we are thinking about leadership, is how are you being vulnerable to these individuals? What is the role of vulnerability within your leadership? I've done a whole bunch of stuff on that, so we're not going to go too crazy into it. I really want to make sure that we land the plane here for love and vulnerability. So one thing that many of you have heard about, talked about potentially, is the difference between a manager and a supervisor. Between a manager and a supervisor, there's big differences between the two. And I think love is one of the two. But I went ahead and came up with a little bit of an instrument, if you will, to talk about this. So I call it the supervision spectrum. So here we go. It is the supervision spectrum because alliteration sells, my friends. So here's the deal with the supervision spectrum. Let's talk about managers first. Let's talk about managers all the way on the left side of that spectrum. First off, managers often have loose connections. There's not a lot in between them and the other people. Like maybe they know their names, maybe they know a couple other things. They don't know a lot about them. The connections, it's not really about the personal relationship. It's about the business relationship. It's about having super thick walls up, so there's no gray area and things like that. These loose connections are very palpable. And the individuals who you are leading can feel them as a manager. Managers also focus more on team performance, way more than they focus on team dynamics. They are caring about the bottom line. They're caring about the to-do list, the check boxes. They're making sure it gets done. These are the individuals that are out here, and so we know that. They don't care as much about, well, how's the team interacting? How do they feel about each other? Should we do a group huddle? Any of that kind of stuff. No, it's not about that. It's about output. I don't need your input. Next. It's all, they only care about credibility. Remember a few weeks ago, we did a session on the difference between credibility and relatability. Credibility and relatability. Again, credibility is your title. Credibility is how many years of experience you have. Your credibility is your degree that you hold. Your credibility is how much you move those numbers from Q3 to Q4. It's all those kind of things. Your credibility is who you know. It's name dropping, right? Like those kind of things. Now that's credibility. Whereas relatability is the other side of it. It's actually, it's not how many, it's not how long you've worked there. It's what you've learned while you've worked there. It's not your degree. It's how you actually apply that degree and how you land the plane for other individuals. It's not your title. It's what you do with your title, those kind of things. And so managers are focused and care mainly only about credibility, right? And those credibility is staple to those results, to nothing else. So therefore, that often causes managers to lead on the side of micromanaging individuals, to potentially they're a little bit condescending, but there's a huge lack of trust. There's a huge lack of trust. And so instead they're out here trying to be very nitpicky about stuff. All of these things lead to the potential of a manager being seen as unapproachable and feared. Unapproachable and feared. So the institution that I talked to you about earlier, I would say was led by a bunch of managers, not necessarily supervisors. That's manager. Let's put it to the other side now. All the way on the other side of the spectrum is friends. All the way on the other side of the spectrum is friends. And while managers only care about getting tasks done, friends only care about community. And so instead of loose connections, they have deep personal relationships, right? They're constantly hanging out with everybody. They want to hang out. They're like, let's invite each other over, right? Like every day is a potluck with a friend, that kind of a situation. And so these loose connections, friends are also more focused on team dynamics, way more than team performance. They care way more about how are we interacting? What's going on with us? How are we doing? How do you feel about that? Right? Like those kind of questions are the ones that they are focused on. The results, we'll get to those results. I want to make sure you're happy first, right? That kind of stuff. Where managers only care about credibility, friends only care about relatability. They only care about relatability. It's like, let's not even talk about, like, I don't even want to make anybody feel insecure about like, yeah, okay, I got a doctorate. I got it. Like, listen, I know what my title says. Here's what it actually means. And don't worry about it. We're all on the same plane. Yes, I make more money than you, but don't worry about that. So those kind of things. Also, because of that, friends tend to err on the side of leniency. They sometimes also err on the side of being nonchalant in their leadership styles. But they're more likely to give they're more likely to give a lot of stuff away of just like, well, let's say, I trust you, right? Where managers are control freaks, friends are not. They're the other side of it. So with that being said, the friends typically tend to get walked on. They tend to not be as respected as much. They know that the individuals that report to them know that they could probably sweet talk their way out of things, or make the friend feel guilty about something, so that then they can then do less work. Those kind of moments are what we see with friends. So, what's the sweet spot in the middle? The sweet spot in the middle is therefore where great leaders live. Great leaders live here in the middle, and they recognize that development, trust, and loyalty is in between getting stuff done and just being friends. Right? They recognize that development, trust, and loyalty is really, it's a crucial factor, and that involves utilizing both sides of this spectrum. So that means that instead of deeply personal relationships or loose connections, they have more professional relationships where they do care about these individuals a little bit more outside of work than a manager would, but they're not only talking about what's happening outside of work. They're not helping you with your relationship advice, right? And that kind kind of stuff as much. I mean, they can be there, but that's not what they're always gunning for. They also care about your development because they know that the outcome matters. So these individuals recognize, excuse me, these individuals recognize that team performance equals team dynamics. In other words, the output that we are going to give, the output that we are going to have, is often determined by how individuals feel about working there. And so that is why they understand, that is why these individuals understand that empowerment is super important. So how are they empowering their teams to take control, to show them that they trust them, right? Again, managers are all about control. And friends are all about trust. And so there's got to be a middle ground in there for us. And so they lead with this idea that it's their relatability, which is what they lead with first, but it's backed by their credibility. The relatability is backed by their credibility, which is why they set the vision and then give courageous feedback and praise. They actually make the decision. Sometimes friends, they won't make a decision. They'll be like, whatever you want to do. This is a group collective decision. And action doesn't even happen. No progress is made. Versus this, a leader recognizes, no, it's my job to set the vision. I can get input on it, but it's my job to set the vision. I am the one with the most hands on the wheel of this ship. But in that process, I also know that I need to bring people in by giving them courageous feedback, by giving them, and we're going to come back to courageous feedback, by giving them honest feedback, but also appreciating them on the back end, because appreciation leads to retention. This leads to great leaders being respected both as a leader and as an advocate. Here's my spectrum, y'all. If it makes sense to you, can you just give me a thumbs up? If you're with me on it, can you give me a thumbs up? What are your thoughts on it? Okay, great. I love it. Here's my next question for you. I'm going to put you into some breakout groups in 1 second. I'm going to put you into breakout groups in 1 second. Here is what you are going to talk about. Whoop, oh my gosh, I'm going the wrong way. You're going to talk about these 3 things. Let me stop this share. You're going to talk about where do you fall on that spectrum right now. If you were to give yourself, if you want to talk about like managers are at a -5, then we go to 0 for where great leaders are because they're balanced, and that friends are at a +5. Ideally, you're trying to be as close to 0 as possible. So on a -5 to 5 scale, where do you fall on that spectrum? That's the first question. The next question is, where would others see you? If I was going to ask the people around you, where would they say you fall on that spectrum? Let's own a little bit of that. And then what do you need to do to move towards the middle? I'm going to put you in these breakout rooms right now. I want you to have these conversations. I appreciate you all, and I'll bring you back in just a few moments. Here we go. My friends, I'm curious if you would be willing to, put in the chat where you think you fall on the spectrum from a -5 to a +5. I'm curious where you are, -5 to 0 to +5, just so I have a handle on how you feel where you are. I think that would help. I know for me, especially when I first started out as a professional, as a grad student, I was a 5. Like all I cared about were people liking me, and that's an Achilles heel in my life in general. But for me, that's all I cared about, and I got walked on. It also, since I did that and I started to make friends with my staff members, that also made me use those staff members that liked me more. And so I would actually, the people who I didn't quite have the great relationship with, I would let them slide, and I would have the people that I did have close relationships with, I would make them do more because I knew they would show up for me. That's also wrong. But that's hard because sometimes you just need that thing to get done, right? You need those survey results. You need that whatever to be sent. And so yeah, for sure. Aubrey, I appreciate your self-awareness in here. We got a lot of people who were on the plus side of things, a few people that are slightly towards the negative side. I think it's just an interesting thing to think about. I would also, if you want, if you want, we can get you that slide. It'd be interesting for you if you want to screenshot that and send it out to your people and just be like, hey, where do you think I fall on the spectrum? But only ask that if you're ready to actually hear the feedback. If you're not ready to hear the feedback, then don't send it out there, okay? Don't ask questions you don't want answers to, friends. Do not ask questions that you are not ready for the answers to. So yeah, so with that being said, let us keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. So we talked about the supervision spectrum. I want to bring it in a little bit more, deeper into the concept of love. Are you seeing my screen right now? Give me a thumbs up if you're seeing the PowerPoint. Great, thank you. So here's next. As I mentioned, I have couples write vows to each other. The reason why I have people write their vows is, one, as I mentioned, because it makes it a little bit more personal, but also I believe that the word love is beautiful, but there is so much behind the word love, right? Like there is just so many things. And when we tell somebody we love them, it's not just like, boop, okay, that was easy. What we're also saying is so many other things. And so my definition of love, one of my definitions of love is that I think love is like one of these old school pill capsules with all those little balls inside of it. I know Tylenol made something like this for a while. This program's sponsored by Tylenol. And I think love is that capsule where when we tell somebody we love them, we give them the capsule. But it's what inside of it that actually makes up that love. So when we tell somebody we love them, we're also telling some, I love the way you make me feel. I love that you think I'm sexy. I love that you believe in me. I love that you think I'm funny. I love that. I love that my friends like you. I love the way you smile. I love the way you think. I love the way you dream. I love the way you compliment me. I love the way all of those things are wrapped up when we say, I love you to somebody, or that we love somebody. We're saying all of those things. And it would be real tedious if every single time you were getting off the phone, you're like, instead of I love you, bye, if we were like, okay, I love you. Thanks so much for the way that you treat me, the way that you believe in me, the way that you laugh at me, the way that you care about me. We got to get off the phone. We got to get off the phone. And so we shortened it up to love. And so this is a beautiful capsule. It's a beautiful capsule, but on a wedding day, of more than most days, is the day where we need to talk about all of those little balls inside of the capsule. And so I make people write their vows because I need you to talk about all those little things. I need you to share a couple of quick stories where, like, this was the moment that I knew that I loved you, or it reaffirmed that I loved you, right? I think about a story with Tina and I. We were going to see her, or one of her best friends, graduate from his doctoral program out of UC Santa Barbara, and we stopped in La Jolla at this shack. I think it's the only shack in La Jolla, so we stopped at the shack in La Jolla where they were serving seafood, and it was right on the beach. It had a stunning view, and we just had this incredible time at this hole in the wall spot. We met this other old couple who were like sharing their wine with us. It was a BYOB. We didn't know that. We just pulled in. They're like, have some of our wine. We're chopping it up with them. And I got back in the car like, damn, I freaking love this woman. And it was just this one of those moments, right? Those are the little balls that we have inside of there. And we need to talk about those on our wedding day. And I need you to think about them. I need you to think about each of those little balls when it comes to the way that you care about your teams. You can also apply this to your friendships and relationships if you want, but I promised you leadership, so I'll give you leadership. So when we talk about this, I want you to think about what would that look like for you if you were going to tell your team why you care about them, why you appreciate them, why you love them, why you believe in them. All of those words have a whole bunch of stuff underneath them. And I think it's worth taking the time every once in a while to unpack that and show them all the little steps to how you got to, here's why I believe in you, because here's why I love you and care about you, because Those moments matter every once in a while. We don't need to do them every meeting because we got things to get done, but I think they're important. So when we think about this concept of love and leadership, there's a really quick equation that I think helps us get there. I believe investment plus commitment equals love and leadership. When we talk about loving those that we lead, it involves investment and commitment. Let's break those two apart because they're kind of similar. Here's how I differentiate between the two. First off, when it comes to investment, whoop, moving real quick out here. First step to investing in somebody is I need you to care about them. We all know, excuse me, let me take a drink here. We all know the steps to active listening, right? If I wanted to, I could tell you to put in the chat right now, tell me how you actively listen. And you would put in there things like eye contact. You'd be like, I square my shoulders at that individual. I paraphrase something that they just said. I ask questions and follow-up questions and stuff like that. We all know the steps to actively listening, but let's be honest real quick. You can fake active listen. Okay, very easy. I do it all the time. But you can fake active listen, but it is hard to fake caring if you make the decision, the choice to care. So investment is about making the choice to care, because when you care about somebody, you naturally do everything that an active listener does. You naturally lean in, you naturally look them in the eyes, you naturally square up, you naturally put down your phone, you naturally ask better follow-up questions, you naturally say, tell me more about that. But investment is making the choice to care about them. Right? Managers don't make the choice to care. They're just those individuals like, I'm not going to care about you. Or it's like, yeah, okay, cool. That's great. That's going on with your life. Yeah, whatever. Cool. Did you get the thing done? No. Great. Next, the next step to investment is courageous personal feedback. Courageous personalized feedback. It's very easy for us as supervisors to shy away from feedback. Different fields are better at this than others. I think, and also different supervisors are better at this than others. But we must have the courage to share where this individual can improve. And in order to make it a little bit easier, sometimes if we share a little bit of story about ourselves on the front end, that makes it easier, right? Like, hey, when I was a young professional, I remember this time where I dropped the ball and let my whole team down. My supervisor kept asking for something and I never got it to them and wound up being too late. And I felt like a piece of garbage. And I realized, oh, shoot, I have a role in making this whole thing happen. And starting with a personalized story that is more than, we all make mistakes sometimes. It's fine. Let me tell you what you messed up here, Paul. All right? No. So courageous personalized feedback. Personalized is a really important word here because it's also for you to get easy for you to give blanket feedback because you're afraid of offending somebody. You're afraid of like, well, I don't want this person to hate me. That personalized feedback means so much more because when you give me direct personalized feedback, I know you took time. And investment equals time. Investment equals time. And so that is why that personalization of the feedback matters. Also, we follow that up with thoughtful appreciation, right? We know the classic Sanford challenge and support stuff coming out right here, but let's talk about it instead of just being some cliche theory that we throw around. Thoughtful appreciation. We know love languages, Gary Chapman's 5 love languages. If you don't know about it, go to Gary Chapman. I think it's 5lovelanguages.com or something like that. Take the love languages quiz. It's super easy. You'll learn your top 5, all those kind of things. You'll rank those 5 and you'll learn how you like to give and receive love. Have we done that with our people? Or are we appreciating them based on something that we just assumed or based on something that we guessed? Or do we know if they are someone who feels love through a verbal affirmation? Or are they someone who feels love with an act of service of, hey, take the rest of the day off, or hey, I know you got a really long weekend, come in late on Monday. Like, what are those acts of service you can do? What does giving your people time look like? Sometimes a thoughtful appreciation is going out for a walk with somebody and just giving them the gift of time, of presence. And so knowing that it is important and thoughtful appreciation for each of the people that you work with matters. And lastly, investment looks like you being authentically curious and supportive about what they do outside of work. Because you know that it's not just about what they do inside of work that makes them good at work. It's also what they do outside of work that makes them better at work, that makes them show up more attentive, more alert, more freeing, more with less carrying less stuff. The more we talked about this way back in the day when we talked about work-life balance. When you're talking about work-life balance, if all you're focusing on is work, you're missing a huge part of your life. You also have to find balance when you leave work. You have to be doing things that bring meaning to your life, because then you bring that happiness into work with you the next day. It is cyclical. So again, how are you authentically supportive and curious about what they do outside of work? That's what investment look like. Again, all of these things take time. All of these things take time. And that's the main thing behind investment. Next, commitment. When we talk about commitment, we're talking about patience. Growth is a process. We're talking about persistence, because growth is a process. And we're talking about advocacy and how we show up for people. We'll come back to those in a minute. Patience. Recognizing that it would be amazing if the person just got it after the training. Recognizing that it would be incredible if I told you something once and you knew exactly how I wanted you to do it, even though I didn't actually tell you exactly how I wanted it. I just said, no, go ahead and do it this way. When you hand it in to me, I'll probably make some tweaks based on my control issues, but don't worry about that, right? Like, so those kind of moments, being patient with individuals as they explore their own leadership, as they explore their own styles of being your supervisee as well. That patience is important. Remember, you hired people not because they were the most perfect, but because they were the most trusted. You trusted them. Hi. And that's powerful. And that is powerful. So next, persistence. Persistence is the idea that if they get it wrong the first time, that you're still going to love them, that you are committed to the relationship, that you are committed to their growth, excuse me. And so persistence is coming back to them. Not, you messed up once, I'm never coming back to you because you made me look bad. It's, you messed up once, how are we going to repair this? How are we going to get through this? Persistence is saying we more and more. And next, advocating. Because it's one thing to say, I love you, I support you. It's another thing to bring that to people above you, right? And advocating for your staff, for your team. What do your people need? That is the next level. That is what commitment looks like. It's not just raining down. It's also upward, and the way that you are supporting them upward, in an upward fashion as well. And having their backs in rooms that are above their pay grade, maybe even above your pay grade, but it's important. And lastly is showing up. When we think about this, right? Good parents show up, right? Good, you know who the good parents are. You know who the good family members, you know who the good friends are. You know who the good leaders are. You know who the good supervisors are because they show up. And so what are those things that you say you're going to do that you do? How do you show up for your word? How do you show up for your people? Again, thinking about stuff that they do outside of work. If they do comedy shows, right? My supervisors, I used to perform. There was a stretch of time when I lived in New York City that I was doing 4 comedy shows a month. No one above me ever saw one, hang on a second. I was doing 4 comedy shows a week, 16 shows a month. None of my supervisors ever saw me perform, and they knew how much of a big deal it was to me. That didn't look like commitment. I didn't need them there at every show. Right? I didn't need that would be awkward because oftentimes I was talking about them. But to have them show up to 1 or 2 to be like, oh, I see why this is special to you. That's the way that we can show up for individuals. So here's what I want us to do now. What I want you to do is this is going to be a personal reflection activity. We're going to do a personal reflection activity. And just for a few minutes, I want you to take a couple of bullet points down. And then we're going to wrap this thing up. We're going to take a few bullet points down where just as I make couples write their vows to each other, I want you to write 5 or 10, somewhere in there, vows that to those that you have the opportunity to lead. I vow to do this. I promise to do this. I want you to start owning some of these things. So just take a quick note. If you want to pull up something on your phone in your notes app, if you want to pull up a Word document, if you have a pen and pad, a Post-it or something like that you can put up on your wall, whatever it is, I want you to take a minute. I'm going to give you just a little bit of time. I want you to write 5 to 10 vows to those that you have the opportunity to lead. Ready, set, go. Thinking about how do you want to make them feel? Starting to name what that commitment looks like, right? Couples in their vows name what their commitment to each other will look like. How will you show up for them? How will you hold them accountable to being the professionals that you know they can be? You often see the greatness in the people that you supervise before they do. How are you going to illuminate that for them? I also really love this point that Thad put in the chat. When we talk about showing up, you're showing up, for example, at an event that someone that you supervise runs. You're not showing that up to micromanage them or catch a potential wrong. You're just showing up to be in support, and to actually be there. I had a supervisor who, if the Air Force cared about how good your hindsight was, she would have been a shoo-in. Because her hindsight was 2020, maybe even more. Like she was crushing it. And she would come to events so that the next day she could pull us aside and be like, well, you should have done this, and you should have done that. Or why didn't you do this? It's like, where was this at the staff meeting when we were telling you about the events earlier this week? Hindsight, not helpful, turns out. I mean, kind of helpful, but it's the way you talk about it. Thank you for doing this activity, friends. This is a really great activity for you to do with the people, with your teams as well, because most likely your people are leading other people. And so whatever that looks like, or maybe it's how do your people lead their clients, that kind of stuff as well in the corporate space, that same kind of thing. This is an interesting, quick activity to do. Feel free to steal my definition of love as well, if that was an easy way for you to bring it up. Or maybe you're going to come at it in another way, or like, love is like whole wheat bread. You can't forget about the seeds. Whatever it is for you, right? You find your analogy, friend. But either way, I'm so glad that you all did this activity.